Hey, welcome back to another episode of the MindShare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. And the ORCF, the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, enabling and empowering realtors across Ontario to fundraise in support of shelter-related causes in the communities in which they live and work. You can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And hey, while you're there, be sure to check out the details of our upcoming MindShare Mastermind happening in Toronto on September 16th through the 18th. Look, we've got a speaker lineup which is absolutely loaded. This is not your run-of-the-mill, typical same old lineup you see at every conference. We're going deep on this one. We're going deep to bring you voices that will motivate you, that will inspire you, that will help provoke you and with that creative spark to elevate to your next level of success. And over the course of 2.5 days, we're going to load you up with actionable value, leaving you wanting way more. And the discussion, the problem solving, and the collaboration are going to be second to none. This is going to be powerful. You've been hearing me talk about it. You may have already reserved your spot for it. Maybe you've been considering it. And I tell you now, spots are limited. Do not wait. Book your ticket and tell your closest colleagues to book theirs too. Our 2024 Mindshare Mastermind is going to be epic. Not only will you thank me for all of it after, you're going to thank yourself for making sure you were there. So make sure to check out the website, mindshare101.com, for more details. And of course, while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so you can build more mindshare and get more market share. Plus, learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 290. Originally from New Brunswick, she moved to Toronto in 2016 with no job, no connections, no network, and no money. Upon her arrival, she started a private personal training company catering to high-profile professionals and garnered a reputation for delivering industry-leading results and even creating and launching a successful line of fitness attire. Living and working in downtown Toronto, she was able to build powerful connections and leverage her passion for helping people reach their goals and overcome emotional obstacles. This opened up her eyes at her opportunity to enter the world of real estate. She is now recognized as a top realtor in the GTA on social media for creative and unique marketing videos 3 years in a row, and has also spearheaded an annual Christmas event dedicated to aiding the homeless on the streets of Toronto. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast is realtor Jenna Rose Furguson. Jenna, welcome to the MindShare podcast.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolute pleasure. It's nice to meet you. I've been, as we were talking about before we got on air, we're stalking each other on social media, seeing what everybody's up to. Looks like you're doing some great stuff, and yeah, definitely looking forward to diving in with you today. And what I've done today was, and for everybody tuned in, this is all about how to get creative with your social media to grow your following and your business.
Mm-hmm.
So you moved to Toronto in 2016, no connections, no network, no money. How did you decide to open up a personal training company? And moreover, what was the first step that you actually took to start the business?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So originally I was planning to go to university for fitness nutrition. I always had this dream that I wanted to open up my own little gym with a nutrition shop on the side. And so went to university, realized that school is not for me. So I started just training people in residence. And then, I flunked out the first year, and then I went back, started working in a gym. So I kind of already had that background. And so when I moved to Toronto, I had no idea I was going to tap back into the fitness industry. I knew that I just wanted to start some type of business. So then when I moved here and I just saw that every condo building had a gym, a nutrition shop just opened up across the street from me. So I went, introduced myself. I just moved here from Calgary at the time. And so I just hung out at the store for like 8 hours a day. Now Artie from Lift the City Supplements, he's one of my best friends. And I just started connecting with the community, people. And then from there, it was kind of just a ripple effect. So really, I got a couple contacts. I started training them in their gym, in my gym, and then it was kind of like repeat referral type of thing. And that's kind of how I grew the business over the course of 3 years.
And how long you were running it for 3 years, that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the in doing that? And I know you said you hung out there, you started talking to people. Anything beyond that? Like if I said to you, what was the trick to developing a consistent flow of business?
Yeah, so I would say at this point, it was more or less when I met a few people in the store. I think I got like one client out of it,
Yeah.
and back then, social media was really just starting to pick up. Like, I don't even think stories were out at this point. So I was really old school. I printed off flyers. I went around City Place, Fort York. I just put them on posts, started talking to people. And then as you start meeting people, you start to figure out where the spots are to hang out, to meet people that had more money. So I started going to the Ritz. I started hanging out across the Starbucks in Yorkville, and so I just really started to connect people that way. And then it really just took one or two clients who really liked the training, that had wives or friends, and then I really just started to build it that way.
So hold on, hanging out at the Ritz, hanging out at Starbucks, and we're gonna take this full circle back to real estate shortly here.
Mhm.
What does hanging out mean? Like you go buy a drink, you just sit there, or do you buy a drink and go talk to people?
Yeah, so I just buy a drink. I pretend like I was doing work, but I was kind of just hanging out on like Kijiji or Facebook, doing outreach. And then I would just see people because I was going there every day. Because again, I didn't have a job, right? So I could hang out there for like 5 or 6 hours a day, and you would start to see the same people come in, or there's people sitting across me with no headphones on, and then I would just start to like talk to them and say, hey, I just moved here. I'm looking for recommendations of, where to go out for dinner, or, what's the best gym around here. And I started started having conversations that way. I would get them on Instagram, and then they would see, we're in fitness. And sometimes it wasn't even like that day that I would bring up personal training. It would be more of like, okay, we kind of built a relationship there. You get them on Instagram. And then you started, building conversations that way, as well as even just joining like local running rooms, meeting people at the gym. So it was a lot of like cold prospecting in a way.
Yeah, for real. I mean, like I'd be sitting there just having a drink, and you just walk up, you're like, hey, where can I go out tonight? And it's like,
Yeah.
who are you? But I guess as you start to see more people, constantly, like I'll tell you, we talk about this often when it comes to prospecting and meeting new people. Go to the gym. You see a lot of the same people, especially if you're going around the same time of the day on a regular basis. You'll start to see a lot of the same people. And at some point, it's going to be awkward not to say hello. And you start building connections. Now, as you were doing all this, were you starting to build up a contact list, or were you just kind of there?
So I didn't have any type of systems or anything like that. At this point, I didn't really have any business background. It was more just pen and paper, on a little notebook that I still have. So, just getting contacts that way. Or if I met someone at Starbucks and I got their Instagram, I would save their page in a little folder, and, I would always follow up the next day. I was like, hey, thank you for that recommendation. It was so nice to meet you. And I don't know what it is, but anytime I told someone I just moved here from the East Coast, it was just such a good conversation starter. So I felt like people were coming from a place of like helping me. Right. So I try to treat it that way. And then it just took a few clients. And then it was just more of like, repeat and referral at that point.
Interesting. You see, this is that whole it's and so everybody really pays attention. The strategy here, okay, is what she was doing was going from online or offline to online, right? Meeting people in person, knowing that most everybody's going to have some sort of Instagram account or some sort of social media. So now we're going to connect with them there because it's the easiest, most unintrusive way to ask somebody for contact information. Like if you're like, hey, random stranger, can I get your phone number? In some cases they might give it to you thinking they're going on a date. In other cases, they might be like, hell no, I'm not giving that to you. Or if you ask for an email address, most people are kind of reluctant because they don't want to be spammed. When you ask somebody for like an Instagram, hey, what's your Instagram? They're most of the time going to give it to you. And from there, that spawns a wealth of opportunity to get the phone number, to get the email, to get the mailing address, because there's probably a link to a website somewhere. There's going to be some extra info you're going to learn, right? So again, for everybody tuned in, like, looking to prospect, looking to grow a following, looking to even build your audience, think offline to online. And when you do that, you can actually transition people back to offline, which is where the real connections actually happen.
Mhm.
So now, Jenna, you at some point decided to transition into real estate. You're doing this business 3 years, you're meeting a bunch of people, you're doing the hard work of like the prospecting and the cold stuff. What was it specifically that led you to get into real estate from what you were doing? Because you said you came from New Brunswick, went to Calgary. Dream was to open up a gym with a little, I'm sorry, a juice bar or whatever, healthy eating and stuff like that. Like, where did real estate enter the whole thing?
So I never thought I would have entered into the real estate world. So when I got my business really going and it was consistent, a lot of my clients were very successful. So they were CEOs or entrepreneurs, and all of my
These
clients,
were the fitness clients.
yeah, my fitness
Okay.
clients.
Yep.
Yeah. So they all had investment properties. So throughout, like our times together, we're either talking about, the real estate market or politics. Like they were all just so very intelligent. And so we're having really great conversations. And throughout, I would say towards the end, a lot of them, would say, hey, we think you would be a great real estate agent. And so I think it was just one client that kind of planted the seed, because we were talking about like, their investment properties and buying real estate. And I was asking more questions about it. And then it kind of just turned into the conversation of, we think you would make a really good real estate agent. You kind of have what it takes. And so I knew that I didn't want to be a personal trainer for the rest of my life. I did it when I was younger back home. And then the only reason why I did it here was because I saw an opportunity to make a lot of money under the table. And so I knew at some point I was going to have to pivot. I just didn't know what that was. And then it kind of just happened naturally. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to take my real estate license. And when I get my real estate license, I'm going all in. Like, I'm not going to keep doing this anymore. And so that's exactly what I did. I, gave my clients to other trainers, or some stopped. And then I just went all in. And then thank God I did, because 3 months later, the pandemic happened and everything shut down.
Wow, that's right, eh? So here's an interesting one. So you had this dream, you had this vision for the fitness side of things, and then all of a sudden that just switched.
hmm
How did you get yourself over the hump mentally to go, I'm going to give up that dream, that vision I had for me, and move into this other one without looking backwards?
Yeah, so I think it was my dream when I was a teenager, and then when I went to university. So when I went to university, I was going there for nutrition. I was training girls on the side because, again, social media wasn't popular yet. I was doing bro science, and I was writing nutrition plans on a little sheet of paper and handing it out in the dorms. Then I went back home at 19. I worked at Good Life for a year. I liked it, but I wanted something different. So the reason why I moved away is because my thought process was, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna bartend, I'm gonna save up all this money, and then I want to open up like my own gym. I don't want to be a trainer. I didn't see that, being long term for me. However, when I moved to Toronto, I just kind of saw that opportunity. And so for me, it was more the lines of, let's just use this as a building block and a stepping stone until I kind of figure out like that next move for me.
Okay. So now you're restarting a whole new business again. Now
hmm
it's real estate. You just
hmm
talked about a stepping stone. What was the first step that you took when it came to getting the real estate business off the ground?
hmm So I guess the first step for me was you got to get the license, and then it was just a lot of rentals. So my plan was, I just want to get out there. I want to do as many deals as possible. I want to talk to as many people as possible. And at this point, the pandemic literally just happened. So you weren't even seeing all my families back home, but I wasn't seeing friends. I wasn't on a team. So I felt very isolated. So for me, my thought process was, I just want to get as many clients under my belt, and then hopefully that will start to transition into buy and sells.
Okay, so getting as many clients on the belt, you're doing a lot of cool prospecting. You're still doing that stuff. Are you still doing the hangout at Starbucks and the Ritz and all that, or has that changed as well?
That's definitely changed, I would
Okay.
say, because again, I think COVID more or less made me a bit introverted. So that was my plan going
I think it
into
did
real
that to
estate.
everybody to some degree.
Right. And then, so that was kind of my plan. And then the pandemic happened. And then when things started to go open back up again, For me, I just wanted to get back in. I wanted to start door knocking because I wanted to become listing heavy. So door knocking was a big one. But still doing networking events. So if my clients had a housewarming party, I try to get to all of those, any baby showers, bridal showers. And so my goal when I go to any type of party, I try to just get everybody on Instagram. And so
Nice.
by doing that, then it's like they can see what I'm doing on a day to day. And then, after maybe a year, 2 years, or right away, you'll get that message of, hey, I'm looking to buy, sell, or I know somebody.
So did the first deal that you did, and I know you said a lot of rentals, whatever, but was the first deal you did, was it with somebody you knew or somebody you had you had literally just met?
So the first deal I did, he actually found me on Instagram, and that was, he found me on Instagram. He liked my content, and that was like a little luxury bungalow in Etobicoke, and that was from Instagram.
So I mean, you're in that literally through being consistent with your Instagram, just with your content. This person reached out to you, and then next thing you knew, you're doing a deal.
Exactly. And so what I also did in the beginning too is I would get permission from other realtors if I could film their house with a professional photographer. And so most of them said no, but the one or two that did allow me, I kind of just made it look like it was my listing. And so I made some really fun listing videos of the home. And so I did that a few times. And I think that's where, he got the confidence thinking that, like this girl sells a lot of real estate. But in fact, they weren't my listings. I just made really cool, fun videos that were engaging that caught his attention.
Interesting. Okay, I want to get into those in a moment, but I want to ask you, as you got into the game of real estate, and we got a lot of new people still coming into the game. We got a lot of people that have, gotten in, let's say, similar time as you, kind of getting into the pandemic time. What would you say outside of the pandemic itself and the impact that that had on everything? But what was the biggest learning moment that you had right off the top of like your brand new adventure into this game of real estate?
Sorry, repeat that one
Like
more time.
biggest learning moment where it's you almost walked in going, here's what I think it is, and then all of a sudden you're doing it and you're like, whoa, wait a second. Here's what what really hit home for me, that light bulb moment that almost goes, hey, this is what you need to know in order to be successful.
Hmm. So I think my biggest light bulb was my brokerage is very much don't reinvent the wheel. You have to talk to people, reach out at least 33 times. And so I didn't really understand the impact of that. And so I think the biggest light bulb for me was, seeing people that, were doing other transactions when maybe they did a rental with me, but it wasn't really staying on top of them and keeping that relationship. So I think the biggest light bulb again was really just being consistent with like your nurtures, your outreach in your database, and making sure that you're top of mind because there are so many realtors. And if you're not consistently building that relationship, even when the transaction is finished, you might lose them to somebody else.
Love that. Real important point right there, Jenna. I love the fact that you actually realized that pretty early. That is something that a lot of people in the industry struggle with. And anybody tuned in right now, as you're listening to this, you think to yourself, either A, I know that, or I know it's a people business, or I know it's relationships, or you're even thinking to yourself, I've got to get better at that. This is something that I continue to preach to everybody in this industry, and anybody in any business that you own, whether it's real estate or it's anything else. You're in sales, you're in a people business, and whatever you're doing to run your business, understand that client list. There are what, 8 billion people on this planet. That client list doesn't need to be that big. A
Mhm.
few hundred on there, and you continue to work them consistently, you can have a consistent business running. It's not hard, and they will refer people. They will tell people, right? They are walking billboards for us. So it's important that we recognize the importance of that. And I think for you to get that right off the top, and naturally, it seems like you already kind of recognize that when you started going to these different places to network with people, having conversations, getting their Instagram so you can stay in touch with them. Like, these are all the keys to success. This is it
Mhm.
right here. And it's not overly complicated. And the fact that your brokerage comes out and says, don't reinvent the wheel, I couldn't agree more. There's not a lot of, most things out there are bright, shiny objects. But there is no magic pill. There is no secret sauce. It does come back to building mindshare with the people that know you, like you, and trust you.
Mhm.
And the more you do that, the more opportunity you get. So now you said that the first deal came from somebody through social media. You recognized, I guess, pretty early as well that social was an important channel to be leveraging. Right off the top here, we mentioned that you had been recognized as a top realtor in the GTA for social media. What was the criteria that earned you that recognition? Do you know?
So I think it's a couple things. So I think like before real estate, I was into influencing and I was doing the personal training. I was doing like PR packages for companies and things like that. So I was already started to have and build that experience with social media, marketing, creating all of that stuff. But then when I went into real estate, I actually had to make a transition. So before my Instagram, personal trainer, fitness, I was a bikini model. So I built a following off of that. And so when I went into real estate, I really had to change my look online because at the time I didn't really understand that. But, being a 25-year-old personal trainer with like bikini pictures here and there, it's like, that's just a different type of audience. So coming into real estate, I thought that I could still do that. I still thought I could be the sexy model and be the realtor. But I quickly realized that, I mean, in Toronto, anyways, if we were in California, sure. But in the Toronto market, people just don't take you seriously, especially if you're, a young woman. You really kind of have to change that. So I built my following through the fitness, through the influencing. And then when I got into real estate, I deleted like 600 photos. I took a lot of things down. And then I recognized that, okay, if I can build it that way, I can do the same with real estate. And so then I just started to get really creative. I started making funny videos or, maybe having a little like sexy, flirty videos, but still appropriate. Again, just to attract engagement. And then kind of from there, I think it had again that ripple effect of, I was doing things that were more creative and funny where people at that point were still, welcome to 123 Main Street. For me, I'm like, let's put on a Santa suit. It's Christmas time. We have a listing video, dress up as Santa Claus and bring me my Christmas present. Right. So things like that, I think just got a lot more engagement. And I think that was how I think that's how I got noticed through that.
So okay, you just mentioned about the Santa suit. You mentioned about what you recognize there, and I think some good observations as well around what's going to attract my audience. So in fact, I was having a conversation with somebody about that yesterday, and the question came up of do you believe culture is really that important? And I responded by saying, well, culture of what? And really, the depth of the conversation was very much around the culture that you bring to the table of who you are, and how are you attracting other people that have a similar culture already, have some like-mindedness to one another. I love my Harley. Other people that love their Harley, there's something to talk about. I love hockey. I love baseball. So, being able to talk about those, I got my family. So by sharing and expressing that type of content, I'm going to attract people that have similar likes, similar interests, similar hobbies, and there's a like-mindedness there to create a culture. And that's again all about recognizing who is our main audience. Excuse me there. So, question. As we talk about that, how do you come up with those different content ideas? Like thinking through about the Santa outfit, which you just mentioned, or anything else you got going on. Because again, doing some friendly stalking on Insta before we got online together, looking at what you're posting, I think a lot of people come up with this question around, or maybe even a roadblock for themselves around the content, the
Mhm.
ideas. How
Mhm.
do you come up with the ideas you come up with? Like, I guess there's the first part of the question, because I'm going to take us through now, and I really want to answer this question about how to get creative with social media, so everybody here can leverage this conversation today. But again, I guess that first question is, how do you come up with your content ideas?
Mhm. So honestly, I bring around a little book that I have because I can get ideas at any point. I find I'm on the road a lot, so sometimes I'll just be drifting and I'll come up with the ideas that way. And it might
Hold on,
only
hold
be
on. You're driving along, you start just drifting and start writing down. Like, it sounds dangerous.
no, I mean, I'll just be driving and you're kind of just long hours on the road. So you're thinking of things, right? Or you're kind of on autopilot. So I do carry around a book where when I do think of ideas that will just randomly come in my head, I just jot them down. I find I can be more creative at nighttime as well. I find that's when I'll get like the juices going. And then sometimes if I just need ideas, I'll go on social media, I'll see what's trending, and then I'll kind of just try to make it my own. If it's around a holiday, then sometimes I'll really just sit there and try to think what would be relevant to this listing video. So again, I think it's just a little mix of things, but I do carry around pen and paper, and I'll just jot down ideas as I kind of go along. Or if I don't have any listing videos or something, I'll see something online, or I'll see a movie, or I'll see a trending song, and then I'll just jot it down for the future.
Okay, so you keep it in a book. I used to do the same thing. I had this like little black book, and I'd write everything down, and then like I'd start using certain ideas, but then not using other ideas. Then I'd get to another page and another page, and I'd look back and I'd be like, oh, there was ideas back there that I didn't use. How do you keep all of the ideas organized? Because it's one thing to write them down. It's another thing to actually keep them organized in a way where you can go back to them and like get back in that creative spirit that you initially had when you wrote them down.
Hmm. I would love to tell you that I'm organized, but I am so unorganized. I feel like half the time I'm a hot mess. But yeah, I think it's just again kind of just figuring out what feels right and maybe what would be, you know, the most relevant like in today's world. But there's also been times too, like I have made videos that I either kind of forgot to post or life got too busy, and then I kind of go back and I look at those videos and I'm like, I don't think that's relevant to me anymore, or the market's changed, or I don't want to post that. So all of my ideas don't come, you know, through, don't come online. I would say, you know, sometimes things happen, or I'm just not really interested in that like idea anymore. So I think it's just kind of, yeah, I just kind of go with the flow a little bit.
Okay, okay. So then, you've got this book and you decide you're going to go ahead and start to create some content. How often are you actually sitting down to create content? Is it, once a week, once a month? Are you batch creating? Is this stuff daily? Like
Mhm.
content ideas are there. It's another thing to actually produce the stuff.
Yeah, so I've been really consistent the last couple years. I will be honest and say the last few months, I've just been extremely busy, and I haven't really had the time to sit down and make all the content that I would normally do. But yeah, that's usually how I would do it. I would, you know, maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll take like a full day, you know, and I'll create content. Now, again, because I'm usually coming up with ideas like throughout the few weeks or whatnot, then it's like, okay, I have a media day. We're going to do 8 hours, and then everything is kind of all planned out, like my scripts, my outfits, the locations. But to have a day like that where I can make like 10 videos, it's usually about like, I would say 3 to 4 weeks of planning the content. And then if I have a media day booked and I'm still, you know, short on some ideas, then I will just sit there and I'll try to get the juices flowing that way as well.
Got it. So sometimes or oftentimes, pardon me, it's actually a batch creation
Hmm.
where you're going to sit down for like an entire day and just rip out like 10, 12 videos
Yeah.
and then have those ready to put out over the period of what, 3, 4 weeks kind of thing?
Yeah, or even usually about like I would say like two months, because I'll have like my professional videos that I'll do back for my media day, so a couple every month, and then I'll just mix in some. Then I'll just mix in my own content of like, you know, information, or if I see something online, you know, if there's rules changing or anything like that, then I'll post some of my stuff. But I'll have like my professional videos where it's the content day. That can last me about 2 months, and then I try to mix in some other things. So whether that be, you know, if there's rules or regulations that's changed, if it's my personal life. That's one thing I also too I've been really big on is I just don't want to be that realtor where you come on my page and it's you know, all my sold and just listeds. I want you to see my life. You know, I want you to know my personality, my lifestyle. So again, it's just not just buys and sells.
It's funny. I saw there was a video you put up. Maybe it was a picture. I don't remember, but you put something up recently. You were sitting at a patio having a drink, or maybe it was in the morning or something like that. And there was a shot glass, and I picked up on the shot glass in the initial post. And it was funny, I just chuckled, like, it doesn't bother me, I don't care, right? And
Yeah.
then I just looked at it. But it's funny because I think in one of your stories, like, right after that, you're like, "Okay, hold on, everybody. I just realized," I don't remember exactly what you said, but, like,
Yeah.
"There was a shot glass there. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. No, I was not drinking." You said something like it was like an energy shot or something like that. I got no idea. Dave, why you bring this up? I bring it up, one, to say I like the fact that you played on it. You
Mm-hmm.
picked up on it and then you played to it instead of, let's say, all out deleting it. Um, and I guess to everybody tuned in, again, this is just that vote of confidence to you that, social media is meant to be fun. And as Jenna just mentioned, she doesn't want to just be the realtor, but she wants to have personality and be herself. And this is something that I share with everybody all the time. And if you're following me on social, you're going to see the exact same thing. You're going to get the business, professional, and you're going to get the real life. And quite frankly, the person is the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's important, because this comes right back to, again, a moment ago where we talked about, culture and finding your audience and like-minded people. It's very much about, do we have something in common?
Mm-hmm.
So be yourself, I guess, is my message. Own it. If you make a mistake on something, you catch yourself somewhere, have fun with it. And again, to you, that was one thing that I just remember from the other day watching that. I thought it was smart. It was good. It was a good idea to do that, because it even, like, I chuckled at it, right? And I was like, yeah, I like the way we played off on that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, nice job with that. But, when it comes to content, we talk about batch creation. We talk about writing down our ideas on the fly. I used to write it down in a black book. Then I went from the black book to an Excel spreadsheet. Excel was very unstimulating, like you just boring spreadsheet, right? So I moved into something called Trello. You ever heard of Trello?
Mm-mm.
It's like an online bulletin board. So it's like, I got an idea, whether I'm on my computer, I'm in my phone, instead of writing it down on a piece of paper, I can pin it up to this board in this app that I've got, and I got all these running content ideas that I've got, and then I can start to categorize them if I want to. But again, that's just idea tracking. How do you stay consistent? Do you have an actual content calendar that you create ever, once a month at all? What's
Mm-hmm.
the play on that?
I think honestly, again, it's not very fancy. It's, just using your Google Calendar, knowing when you're about to post. Again, with my feed content, I have been less consistent this year. I've just been extremely busy. I just made a transition onto a team, so I'm really just focusing on working on the business, but I still have my story content. So I've been doing house tour Thursdays every Thursday for the last 4 years consistently. So I think my followers can still, get that consistency and still get to see the houses and things like that. But before, over the last few years, yeah, it would just be okay. I'm gonna do content like this day, this month, and then I'll have kind of like a spreadsheet of when I'm gonna post it type of thing. But it's really not anything fancy. I don't use a whole bunch of apps. I'll put it on my Google Calendar, or sometimes I kind of forget about the video. I'm like, oh, I gotta post that, and I'll put it on. So I don't really have the best systems in place for that. I wish I did, but it's more just, okay, I'm gonna do batch content this day, and I know it's gonna last me 2 months. And then again, throughout that 2 months, if I see something online that's trending or a new rule that just came, then I'll just throw that into the mix as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I would say you seem to have found your consistency and your ease with it to post. And obviously, you did mention a moment ago being real busy. It's kind of gotten you away from a little bit of that. To anybody, again, everybody tuned in right now, and you're thinking, okay, so batch create, write down my content ideas. I asked about the content counter because that would be my suggestion to anybody as a next step, is create that. Now, I'm with you though. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. Mine actually does reside in an Excel spreadsheet where I've got, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just these columns. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the, how frequently are we posting in a day? We typically post 2 to 3 times a day, let's say. What kind of posts are they? Is it a video? Is it a promotion? Is it a good news story? Is it, a podcast, something? Like, what are we posting? So we'll have some specific types of content that's going to go at a specific days. And now it just starts to almost become robotic, automatic. Now we shift and we shake every month. We're looking at that and going, what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to you and to anybody else, I'd say, having that type of spreadsheet is going to be real simple to just keep you going and keep you consistent with those efforts. Because again, you seem to have done something right to be able to grow a business based on this channel.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I would also say too, sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off there.
yeah, no.
I think it's not overcomplicating it. So maybe starting off with one thing that you can be consistent. So for me, it was my house tour Thursdays. I told myself every Thursday I'm going to post on my story of this house, and I have to do it every single Thursday. So I guess for me, that's always been very consistent. And then you can build up from there. So I
Mhm.
would say with my stories, I'm posting every day. Again, there's no formula. If I know I'm going to a really cool house, maybe I'll get there 20 minutes early, I'll film it. And I kind of treat it that way. With the feed posts, I think you can have a bit more structure, but I think just starting off with that one piece of content that you can commit to. And then once you have that as a habit, then you can start off with maybe posting, twice a week or 3 times a week or whatever that may be.
No, it's great. The great point. Absolutely. And we call that staple content, right? I like that, that piece of advice very much. Now, in terms of time that you scroll in a day, do you have a specific time of day or specific, amount of time in a day that you spend, engaging with other people, that you spend going through your social media in a day, or are you just kind of randomly on there like most of the world is?
So I did have a little bit of a system back in the day. So I would try to spend probably 2 hours in the morning, and that would just be following new people, commenting, liking, sharing things. And again, I kind of mentioned earlier, if I gave someone my Instagram, I would keep a little folder. So what I used to do in the beginning was I would type in, Toronto business girls or Toronto CEO, and I would go and I'd follow these girls and I'd keep them in a little folder, as creepy as that is. And I started to build relationships that way. So I started following them, commenting on their photos. Now I only did this with females because if I did that with men, they would probably get, different ideas in their head. And this built such great relationships. So I was doing that consistently for a couple years. And I had some instant gratification where, after a couple months of doing that, I had, someone ask me to list their place. It was a buy and a sell. And now I'm just seeing it happen, 4 years later. Someone just sent me a referral for a buy. And that was from when she asked how I knew this person. I'm like, oh, we're just Instagram friends, like never really met her. And she was just like, oh, wow. Right. So it's within a few years later, I'm still just starting to see that. But again, I will be honest and say the last like 6 months this year, I've just been kind of running all over the place and not focusing on it as much. But that's something I do need to get back with because I think it can be super powerful.
Okay, right off that, because you've said that about 3 times, and I know that we started off by saying you won 3 years in a row or something like that for rewards on social. Why has it not been consistent? Is it because business has been picking up?
I think, yeah, business has picked up and I've just been doing a lot of door knocking.
Okay.
And so I've just been kind of filling my plate with that. I think that's been the
Seeing
biggest
better,
thing.
are we seeing better results from the door knock than we are from the social?
Um, no, not really. There's definitely more on social. Again, for me, I'm just trying to get more listings right now.
Okay.
And again, not the most organized person, but there is a lot of benefit from the social media. The social
Okay.
media is nice is because again, like you can just build relationships without leaving your house, right? And so again, I think that's super powerful.
So when we talk about getting our content to reach a wider audience, what tricks could you give anybody today? Any advice right now when it comes to that?
Definitely utilizing the hashtags, making sure you're tagging the location. So if you're trying to pick up people in Cambridge or something like that, maybe hashtagging that location or going into different businesses. That's also something I've done. Going into local businesses, and then if you can ask them if you can shoot some free content for them, and then you're posting in that location. So I think that's a great way to expand your audience if you're trying to get in different locations.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I like that. So hashtagging, tags. It's really a lot about tagging, which is going to get
Mhm,
us further out there, and then obviously, collaborating with other businesses who have their own audiences, other people.
mhm,
Even like you and I are doing right now. My
mhm,
audience now gets to see you. Your audience gets to see me. And there's the power of social media, for everybody right now. It's every time you're going into a local shop, every time you're going into to connect with somebody, include that person in the post. Include them. They will reshare, and now you're getting wider.
absolutely. I think collaboration is huge, right? Even just making content with your mortgage broker or your lawyer, or maybe
Right.
maybe it's within your brokerage, but they're in a different location or they're on the opposite end of the city type of thing, right? So I think collaboration is also a great way to expand your audience.
Now, what about so like just going specific to video? You are You've done a lot of it. You do a lot of it. Are you recording yourself? I know you mentioned media day. Is that obviously hiring a team? What's just the, sort of when it comes to, I want to put a video out there.
Mhm.
Explain the process to me or us.
Mhm. So again, I feel like I live a lot. I would say 50% of it I live in the moment, and then 50% of it is planned. So I would say for sure every day I'm at least posting on my stories. So if I'm,
Yeah.
if I'm showing some really cool houses, or if again if rules or regulations have changed, or even if I've made mistakes, so sometimes I'll come on here and be like, listen, this is how I lost a client, this is what I did. And I think people really love that because it's super authentic. You don't have realtors coming on and saying, this is what I messed up, this is how I lost this client type of thing. And so again, sometimes I'll just live in the moment. If it's, I'm having a really cool day, or if I had a really cool conversation, or if a client asked me a question that I thought was beneficial to share with people online, I'll just hop on my story and say, hey, I was just talking to my client and he asked about, first time home buying or something like that, right? I'll come on the story and I'll share that with people. You can make polls, you can make quizzes, so then people are engaging with you, and then your
Mhm.
story views go up, and then you can just have more conversations with people.
So now, stories is one thing. Is we're being real raw when we do that, just recording right on there. When
Yep.
it comes to the other videos that you create, is there a
Mhm.
particular program that you use to edit your videos, or do you send that off to somebody?
Yeah, so for my professional videos, I have someone who edits it, and then if I'm gonna do it myself, I use this kind of app called VN. So that's similar to InstaShot. I know a lot of people know of InstaShot. So that's when you can kind of edit everything on your phone and make it super simple.
Cool. Now, if you're recording your own video, you're editing your own video, then you're posting it. What kind of time does that usually take you?
Ooh, that could really depend on the post. I could spend
Right.
anywhere from 30 minutes to 2.5 hours. So it
Okay.
really just depends what I'm posting. If it's a, simple house tour, that could be, 30 minutes to an hour. If it's new, rules or regulations that come out, then that could take me a little bit more time because now I also have to research a bit more. So it really can just depend what content I find. If it's information, that will take me a little bit longer because I want to really make sure that I have all my ducks in order and everything makes sense, opposed to like if it's just personal content, or something like that.
Okay. So wait, you've spent, let's just call it 2 hours putting a video together, and now it's time to share it out. You share it out. How do you gauge whether the 2 hours you just spent doing this were actually worth it based on the results you got over here? And what, like, is it views? Is it likes? Is it engagement? Is it
Mhm.
direct business? Or is it like, I don't even look at that. I post it and then I go back to work for the rest of my day. And then I come up with more content and just keep putting it out.
I know some people really do track, their insights and things like that. For me, I don't try to get too stuck up on it because I used to before. Like your information videos, most of the time don't get as much views, as maybe some of the other flashy stuff. But again, I have a lot of my past clients on there and friends and people that I'm building businesses with. So long as they're seeing that, and again, you can post it on your story and then you can go down and see who's seeing it. When I see that a lot of my clients or people that I'm nurturing or trying to get as clients are seeing that, then that makes me feel good. I don't need 20,000 views on a video for it to be successful. Would that be nice? Yes, but if the people that are seeing it, are the ones that are important to me, I think that's great. And then if you can pick up a few extras along the way, then I think that's amazing.
Gotcha. No, I like that. So what would you say to anybody who's scared to get on video here in 2024?
I would say just do it. I think a lot of people get stuck up in their heads of, being scared or being judged, but the one thing with video is that you can retake it as many times as possible. For me, I was comfortable on camera, but when I got into real estate and started talking about first time home buying and land transfer, oh my god, I was so nervous, but again, you can just film it as many times as possible until you get one that feels good for you, and then just post it because most of the times people don't really care about that stuff. It's just doing it consistently, and then eventually it just becomes second nature like anything.
Couldn't agree more. Now, you mentioned door knocking. Love hearing that. Love hearing. I know so many people that just don't want to. And I'll tell you that 96% of people asked say they do not do it. Of the 4% who do it, 99% of them say they see business from it. So, a little vote of confidence to you that you're doing it. Keep it up, whether you're getting the results or not, because most realtors aren't, but most who do get a lot of business. It works. Now, to that, do you make phone calls every day?
Yeah, I would say, well, pretty much a few days a week for sure. Do I do it every single day? No. But a few times a week for sure. And that's like checking calls, follow-up calls from open houses or door knocking. I would love for it to be every single day. But again, I feel like some days you just get caught up with showings and you're on the road all the time. But a few days a week for sure. Absolutely. You have to.
What about sending a newsletter? Do you send a newsletter out?
So I used to send a newsletter out every month, and
Yep.
I found that my audience, anyways, they were just unsubscribing. So what I do now is I send out an email 4 times out of the year, so once every quarter, and I try to make it a little bit more fun. So I'll do like a summer free guide, a winter free guide, and I'll just tag what's going on, that season, and then at the bottom, I'll put a little real estate blurb. But I found that had way more engagement than my monthly newsletters.
Gotcha. Now, I guess when sort of keeping on that. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at, we brought up the topic of social. We've talked about social and video. You mentioned that you did a lot of cold prospecting of just literally networking with people and getting out there in front of people, and that you still do that. We talked about door knocking. We've just said that, at least a few times a week, you're making the phone calls. And as you just said, incredibly important. So we're leveraging a number of different channels to get out there in front of people. Obviously, we just talked to the newsletter briefly. And what I'm trying to help everybody understand, and audience talking to you right now, saying, it's not just social, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to make the social come alive, we have to do the other connection points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those connection points are actually what spark us to get on social with somebody. Sometimes it initiates from social, but then it's got to be taken. Now it's from online. It's got to go offline. And that's really where you're starting to it seems like you're really having your success in real estate.
And I feel like that's most of it. Like again, there are, I would say probably 60% of it is I'm meeting people in person, and then I'm getting them on Instagram. So,
Right.
people that come through my open house, I see their first and last name. After the open house, I'll try to find them on Instagram. I'll get them there. And then that rest of the 30% is me just adding people on Instagram that live in Toronto or live in Mississauga and building relationships that way. I find both are great. However, if you do meet someone first in person and then you can nurture them on social media, I find that's way more natural. But I think both are great. Both are great, whichever way you decide.
So on the social media front here, what's the one thing that you feel just everybody needs to know about social media? Is there anything in particular that you might say, know this or do that? I mean, and I might just preface that for you and make a suggestion here that talks to likes, views, what the results look like. What would you
Mhm.
say?
I would say social media is always changing, and you really have to kind of keep up with the times, and follow that. And I think it's just being consistent with it. Start posting every day. Start having conversations with people. Make little folders. Make sure you're going in and you're seeing their posts, right? Especially if someone just had a baby or got married. Like I've even sent people gift cards who just got married. They're not my clients yet. We haven't even met in person, but here's a little gift card, like congratulations. And I think that can just go such a long way, because a lot of people are not doing that, and it will really make you stand out and be authentic.
See, right. Again, going from online to offline.
Mhm.
I really back that in a strategic way, because that's exactly how we make the deeper connections with people. So to that, then what would you tell any new realtor getting into the business about, that would help them grow their business quickly?
Mhm. Doing lots of reels, because again, like I just mentioned, Instagram is always changing, right? So before it was all photos, and then you had to make the switch to reels. So just trying to stay on top of it. You don't have to have all the tools to get started. It doesn't have to be picture perfect. It doesn't have to be professional. Just get your phone out, start making reels, start building connections. If you're in real estate, even if you're starting off with rentals, ask them at the very end, can I grab you on Instagram? Can we stay in touch? And just start treating it as a touch point. Because it's like, personally, I don't love calling my database like once every 4 quarters to check in. I'd rather just send them a message on Instagram once every 2 weeks and say, oh, like, where was that restaurant, or where did you guys just go camping at, type of thing. It's way more natural, and I feel like it's way more friendly.
So you spend a lot of time engaging with other people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Huge, absolutely huge, right? Like, it's one thing to put out your own content. It's another thing to engage with other people's content. We had a guest recently, Asif, who said something. What do you say? He says, don't just be interesting, be interested. Right. So again, instead of just posting about you, go figure out what they're up to. Just like you said, what restaurant, what camping spot, etc. So here, quick, you've got a Christmas event that you do that is dedicated to aiding the homeless on the streets of Toronto. I'd be remiss if we didn't get to that today and just bring that up and bring some light to that, some awareness for everybody. I think this stuff is incredibly important. And you might want to check into the ORCF to see how you could get involved with the ORCF, the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, to assist you with that program, and then be able to sort of do some collaboration back and forth. I think that might be an interesting one, but tell us about that quickly.
Just give me 1 second. Yeah, so my brother recently, well, the last couple of years, he's been homeless. And so I really just wanted to give my part and really just give back, because I think everybody, again, does have a story. And so he was kind of my inspiration behind that. Unfortunately, he is still homeless. So I feel like by me just doing this part, I hope that, maybe something could come out of it that way. But I think it just helps me connect to him in some ways, even though he's back in the East Coast. So I try to, again, just give back to the homeless. Everybody has a story, and yeah.
What would you say to everybody about making time to get involved with something, why they should make time to give back to the community?
I think just giving back in general, I think creates a lot of really good karma. I just think it's really important to do, when you give back, then it allows you to open up and receive. So I think, with anything, it doesn't have to be homeless people, but just taking something that, is important to you, and, just being able to give back to the community, I think is really important, and it makes you feel really good. And if you get some real estate out of it, sure. But I think, again, it's just when you give back, then it allows you to receive a little bit more.
Love that. So you've gone through all this stuff. You're doing all these great things out there. You're having success. You're selling real estate, meeting people, posting on social, giving back to the community. At the end of the day, you lay your head down at night, every single night. How do you, Jenna, know it's been a successful day for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think just going to bed at night, just being happy. I think that sometimes you have days that are all planned out, and you have this checklist, but the reality is sometimes you don't always get to it, right? So I think just waking up and going to bed happy every single day, and not just being not being stressed all the time. I think there was a point where I was so emotionally invested into some of these deals, and it was taking happiness away, when all you can really do is you can do everything in your power to, make transactions and things go smooth. But just knowing that, it's sometimes it's not in our control. So just making sure that you're happy, I think, allows me to know that I've had productive days, or it was a good day.
Amazing. Listen, we asked that question at the end of every show. Nobody ever talks about money. People are always talking about help and happiness. So great answer there. Jenna, final words. First, where can people find you on social?
They can find me at jenna.rose.realty.
Perfect. Check her out on social media. Get a sense of why we brought her on today to talk about how to get creative with your social media to grow your following and your business. Jenna, some final words you want to share with everybody to get out there to build more mind share so they can get more market share?
Yeah, I would say, don't get stuck up in your head. Everyone is just trying to do their best. And I think if you really just want to make it in real estate, just block out all the noise and just focus on being consistent and building relationships.
Very awesome. Jenna, an absolute pleasure having you today on the MindShare podcast. We want to thank you for making the time. I want to wish you all the best of luck going forward. Definitely let's keep stalking each other online. Lots of fun. We'll stay in touch and keep connecting. But again, thank you very much for making the time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. Remember, while you're there, be sure to check out the details for our upcoming Mindshare Mastermind and download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so you can build more Mindshare to earn more market share. For all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Of course, don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at ratethispodcast.com/Mindshare101. Whether you're on an iPhone, on an Android, whatever you're on, you can connect through this link right here, ratethispodcast.com/Mindshare101 to leave us a big 5 stars and a nice little review. We'd be super, super grateful as always. And if we haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Facebook and TikTok at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. Need to take a quick moment here to say thank you, a big thank you to REM Magazine, OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, and the ORCF, the Ontario Realtors Care Foundation, for sponsoring the Mindshare podcast. Of course, a big thank you to Kits as well. This has been another episode of the Mindshare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.